Hello there, and welcome to another episode of NaitchPlays Pro Evolution Soccer 5. As I mentioned in the previous episode, we're taking a break from the Premier League to bring you some European football, or an attempt at it. As I mentioned in that episode, you can't actually play the Champions League in this game because they didn't have the licensing for it. Part of that is why we will be playing a slightly shortened version of the tournament. This group stage, I completely forgot what I was talking about there. The group stage will be just one game against each team, and then we'll go to the knockout stages, which will have 2 legs, but I will need to create that as a separate 16-team tournament for that to work properly. So as you can see, we are playing against Real Betis here. The groups have been custom set to as close a representation of the 2005-2006 Champions League group stages as possible. Not all of the teams were available, so I've had to make some changes in a few places, but I don't think Chelsea's group has been affected by that, so Real Betis were in their group. I can only remember one of the other teams, but it's a big one because this is the season following Liverpool's Champions League win in 2005, when they overcame AC Milan after going a few goals down and managed to come back and win it on penalties. But I think they finished 5th in the league that season, which meant they didn't qualify for the Champions League. This is back when it was only the league positions that set that, so winning either of the European Cups didn't guarantee you that position. So they changed it around and Liverpool were put in, but the usual restrictions preventing teams from the same country being drawn in the group stages together were not a factor for Liverpool, which meant that they actually ended up in the same group as Chelsea. So with this being match 1 of 3 in our group stage, either match 2 or 3 will be against Liverpool, and the final match will be against the other team. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but we can find out after the match. The other thing to make note of is something I briefly touched upon in the closing moments of the previous video, and that is that I will be playing all of these quote-unquote Champions League games. It's actually the Konami Cup settings, although I did change the name. I'll be playing all of them on 5 stars just to make it a true challenge. As we've seen in the few league games that we've played so far, I haven't actually conceded a goal, although I did in some of the pre-season friendlies, so maybe it's actually European teams that are the problem for me. Yeah, we don't want this to be a walk in the park, do we? Let's try and hope that we still keep winning, of course, but that it's done in a competitive manner. And so far, I think Real Betis have actually been living up to that. I would say they've probably had a similar number of chances to us, but they've done more with them. I don't think we've had any clear-cut chances yet, would be possibly the phrasing Football Manager would use. We're not playing Football Manager here, of course, so the real term doesn't exist on Pro Evo, or it might on the newer games. I think Pro Evo 6 is the newest one I've actually played, so who knows. Of course, those newer games do have the Champions League on them, so if only we were playing one of those instead, we wouldn't have nearly as good a team compared to the rest of the teams in the game. This is probably when Chelsea were at their peak in terms of overall ratings, I think, when they were only a few years into the Abramovich era, and they were the only big money team spending that hadn't earned it, I suppose, is probably the honest way of looking at it. Obviously you had teams like Man United and Arsenal dominating English football, and Real Madrid and Barcelona were, of course, still as good as they are now. But yeah, this is the team I'm familiar with, so that's the reason why I actually chose to play as them in the first place, and why I chose this era, because I will know more of the players on other teams than I would on a modern game. It's down to the fact that I haven't been as passionate a fan as I was when I was younger. I think Football Manager becoming the latest version of Football Manager becoming free for a week at the moment as of recording is probably gonna help my rehabilitation of contemporary football knowledge, because I am playing it, of course. I am playing as Chelsea because they're still the team I know the best, and because I didn't want to deal with the way the transfers work. The whole economy of it is completely different to what I'm used to. I'm much more used to playing Football Manager 2012. And football changed a bit between 2011 and 2019, so it's tricky. That's all I can say. Back to this game, we've just taken Ian Robin off, and in fact we've brought on Damien Duff. So I will actually switch these two around as well, because I feel like Duff would be more useful on the left-hand side, or more useful than Sean Wright-Phillips would anyway. Hopefully we can break the deadlock in the second half. It won't be very interesting if it's another 0-0 draw. We've only had one of those so far. It was against Portsmouth, but that was on 4 stars, so who knows what could happen. I would probably prefer a 0-0 draw to a loss. Oh, Joe Cole just about got what I think could have been our first shot on target, but straight into the goalkeeper's hands, unfortunately. So we'll just give away a free kick there. Yes, so I'm not actually sure if this is going to be the easiest game of our group stages, because, as I've mentioned, I'm not sure who the third team are in the group, or the fourth team, I suppose, if we're the first. There's another free kick given away there. That said, we did, of course, beat Liverpool in the league already, on a pair of technicalities, if you want to go into detail on that. The fact that we scored 2 penalties against them doesn't invalidate our win, but it possibly gives me less optimism for an easy game against them in the Konami Cup here. But we'll be playing a few more league games before we get to the second in this tournament, just because with the lack of cup games until the end of the season, and of course that only being with the 20 top flight sides on this game, that's not until the end of the season of the league, and with this tournament only having 1 leg, that means 3 group games, so we will possibly have to draw things out. Oh, Duff finally gets his head on the ball down at ground level, but he doesn't quite get the ball in the net. That's come off the woodwork there. So not even a corner out of that. That's definitely the best chance we've had so far. And there, the clock is ticking down. Oh, that's a free kick for us. And the man who got fouled is the one to take it, Ricardo Carvalho. Based on my game on Football Manager, I've recently discovered he is currently the assistant manager at Marseille in real life, which isn't something I knew. So these football games certainly do keep you in the loop. I'm sure that's how many players of that game were aware of one Erling Haaland before he actually made his move to Borussia Dortmund in the real life January transfer window. Not entirely sure why I'm bringing Carlton Cole on here. Just possibly because Idiger Johnson wasn't there. I'm not sure if he's already on the pitch and I just haven't realised it. Yes, he is. There we go. So I can only presume that means Frank Lampard's not. So I can see Joe Cole there. Those of you who were paying attention earlier might have noticed that the two mystery bars that I haven't quite worked out the purpose of yet were full, unlike in the league where several of our players were struggling with as yet undetermined ailments. That's because this is technically under a different save, so although I will be recording the goals and the assists into the season total tally on the right, provided we do actually score some goals, of course. None of that will factor in. I will make an exception for any injuries that take place. I will willingly drop any player who picks up an injury in there, in the league. I think Robben is probably the only person likely to have that happen to him at the moment. I didn't actually check to see whether he was suffering from a long-term injury after the Aston Villa game. So hopefully he's not. But if he is, then he won't be playing in the following game after this. I did actually have him playing in the first half of this game, so it'd be a slight continuity error if he is injured, but never mind. Cole here with a break. Duff gets a head off, he hits the other part of the woodwork, so he's hit the post and the crossbar with headers in this game. I'm not sure he's actually successfully managed a header up until now, so he's definitely putting a shift in. He didn't quite get the ball there, but William Gallas has intercepted to save the day. Carlton Cole losing the ball, but his brother Joe picking it up. Johnson to Drogba. We're in 1 minute of injury time already, so it's looking like this is going to be a 0-0 draw, especially while Betis have the ball. And Terry with the interception there to prevent Betis from making any more of their run. And that's it. That's the end of that game. That's 0-0. So, with that being 1/3 of the group stage is over already, it could end up being a huge result. So, Brussels is the next game. Could be Anderlecht, I think. I'm not 100% on that, but that would be my guess. Unless FC Belgium is Anderlecht, in which case that would possibly make them Bruges. I'm really not sure. We'll find out next time. I will make sure I have that information. And speaking of, we will see you next time.